Hello, Romania. It's so nice to see you.
You too, Constance. It's been a little while.
I thought that it would be really interesting for my readers to listen to you talk about your knowledge, things who are so connected to my company. That's why I ask you if you would take this time to sit with me and and I can ask you a few questions.
Sure, sure.
My first question would be, what inspired you to do what you do?
As a youngster, everything about China fascinated me. I remember one time I found there was a little Chinese vase in the laundry room at my aunt and uncle's house. It was a little pewter, little cut glass and Chinese vase, one of the antique ones, and I just grabbed it. I was a little kid. I grabbed it and went, I want this, I want this. And I wouldn't let them take it out of my hands. I wanted it so bad. It was like that. Then when I first found out about Chinese culture, I was just I get these shivers. And then I met a Chinese woman, when I was 21 years old. I was in a rock and roll band, and I met a Chinese woman, and she did my astrology, and she told me that I had been a Chinese doctor in past life, and I started going like this. And so we wound up getting married, and we went to China on our honeymoon in 1985. And I went there prior when China was full-on communist. There was no skyscrapers at all in Beijing. But curiously, they kept taking us to herb farms. And they would always wink and blink at me in a certain way too. It was like, now later in retrospect, I think, do these people know my destiny or something? But the tour guys would always kind of give me a little. But I was fascinated by the herbs. And one night we were staying in a town in northern China called Jilin, which is where the herbs are collected and brought to that town as the main hub in the northern Manchurian province of China. And by the way, this place is very clean. Most of it is now UN biosphere. It's got a geography similar to Vermont and New Hampshire. It's a very clean place. This is where our herbs come from, just so people know this right away, because there's a lot of propaganda about Chinese herbs being tainted. Well, we happened to go to that region, and I just saw the people who lived in that town, and I was like, I didn't know much about health at that time, but I recognized how vibrant the people were, particularly the male and the female energies. The women were extremely feminine and beautiful. The men were really masculine, big square jaws and 5 o'clock shadows and Elvis thatches. And I just noticed this beautiful dance between the genders, and I thought, God, that's really something to be envied. I wish we had that in America better. It's so fractured here. Our ability to communicate with each other and the genders, as you may know. I saw these things, and I recognized that all these people were taking the herbs because they came from that region. So one night I went out, I had insomnia, I left my hotel room, and I walked out, and I passed this alley, and all these mule carts I'd seen coming into town that day with herbs on the back, they all had parked in the alley behind my hotel, right there. And I stumbled into this place, and they had butane flames for light, and these little peasants sitting on their carts looked like they were wearing like burlap bags for clothes, and pieces of burlap wrapped around their heads and their feet for shoes and hats. And they're sitting there like this with these little butane flames with like wet ginseng roots and astragalus roots and reishi mushrooms all over their mule carts, And I just went stumbling into this place. I thought, my God, I just went back thousands of years in here. And I was again shaking, and I was like, how did I be here? How am I here? So we came back to America, and she said, let's make some Chinese herbal tinctures. We lived in San Francisco. We lived right down on Lower Nob Hill, near Chinatown. So we walked into Chinatown, went into a Chinese bookstore. We found a book called Chinese Tonic Herbs by a man named Ron Teagarden. This was in the year 1986. Now, I have that very book, and I've gone back and looked at it and realized that we bought that book 1 month after it was published. So I may have bought one of the very first copies of that book ever sold. And I have yet to tell my teacher that, Ron Teagarden. Anyway, we bought his book, and we started making tinctures from this. Then, I just noticed we were making little liquid extracts of ginseng and hosho wu and astragalus and reishi. And I remember taking them every day. My wife would give me them before I left. She'd give me a little shot. We call it chew, it's a little shot of herbal tincture. And I'd get on my bike and ride to work and going right up the trail hill going like this, wow, man, this stuff is real. And so we broke up in a really miraculous way. One day she said to me, your lessons are done. She was my first grade guru and teacher. One day she said, your lessons are done, you can go. And I went back to Los Angeles, got right back into music. Well, fast forward to the year 1998. I had been doing some healing work as a green juicing therapist, working with people who are really sick. I've been doing that for about 5 years at this time. And I wanted to learn a deeper thing. I actually prayed one morning for a teacher to teach me something like, I had certain conditions. I was like, I want to learn the deepest healing system that exists, the most profound healing system. That's what I want to learn, right? Well, that very night, I was asked to go out and play some guitar at a place called the Besant Lodge, founded by my hero, Annie Besant, one of my great heroes, in the late 1800s. And if you haven't read about Annie Besant, read her life, and just go to Wikipedia and read her life. She organized the very first ever strike of the young girls at a match factory in the 1880s. She was thrown in jail and released by Mahatma Gandhi was his first client as an attorney, young attorney, and it just goes on, but fascinating life. So she had created this place in the 1800s, like a little chapel up in Beechwood Canyon. I was asked to play guitar there. So I went there. It was the year 1998. I played my guitar, about 10 people there, played a little bluegrass for them. Got done, left, and they said, now, folks, for your pleasure and enjoyment, Master Herbalist Ron Teagarden is here to speak with you. And I was like, that's the guy that I had the book. And that's the dude we bought his book in 1986. Here he comes, man. Ron Teagarden was walking through the room like this. And he comes up and he stands there and goes, talks for about 10 minutes. It looked a little bit consternated, maybe because there was hardly anybody there, really, maybe 8 or 9, 10 people. And he may have come a long way or something, I don't know. But I went up to him afterward and said, sir, I'm a fan. My wife and I had your book. He looked at me, he goes, come tomorrow. So he gave me his address, and I came over to his place the next morning. And he walked upstairs. I walked upstairs, and he looked at me and says, go downstairs and make a tea, and one of my assistants will show you. So I made this tea that takes like 3 hours in these big pressure cookers. There's all steaming water and boiling, and steaming in these little pouches, and putting the giant hemp bags inside this thing. Was like it's out of a submarine, and boiling it. And I took it up to him 3 hours later, and he cut off the little tip of the retort pouch, poured it in his cup, and took a sip, and he went, He goes, you're my tea master. So I became his tea master, and then he laughed about this. So that's the fastest apprenticeship in all history. It's usually 2 years at least. You have 3 hours. But anyway, I became Ron Teagarden's personal apprentice for 8 years, and he taught me the precepts of the Gate of Life lineage, which is the lineage of Taoist Tonic Herbalism, of which you and I are initiates now. And so we sell what's called tonic herbs, and tonic herbalism is the original nucleus of what is today TCM, or Chinese traditional Chinese medicine. It's the original nucleus. When it wasn't about sickness yet, it was about prevention and wellness and empowerment and longevity. It turns out that as TCM developed into a medical system by 1500 BC, when a Yellow Emperor wrote the Classic of Internal Medicine, or had it written, our lineage was already highly advanced by then, and there were these masters in the mountains who were called immortals. And they were holding our lineage of using tonic herbs for ultra empowerment, what we call health beyond danger, just everything in balance. To tonify means to tune the strings of an instrument and hold them in balance. That's what we want to do by tonifying the body. Well, as TCM advanced, what we call the Gate of Life lineage, our lineage, just stayed up in the woods by itself. But Ron Teagarden was the first Westerner to receive that information, when he had to work for quite a while as an apprentice for a master, old Korean master, who wound up teaching him this, and then he taught me. So I'm one of his primary, in the lineage initiates, and that's where it came from. So that's where I'm at right now. And yeah, I've written a couple of books on it, which I think you read, Healing Thresholds, maybe Raw Chi. It's a fascinating thing. The philosophy behind tonic herbalism is the part that's amazingly fascinating.
What makes you the most happy about the work you do?
Well, the same reason. It's just a wonderful feeling to know that you really did. Someone called you and said, my God, I really do feel better, And we've always believed in natural medicines. Natural medicines are the real medicine. And, the new medicine is the alternative medicine. It's got its place. But new medicine, pharmaceutical medicine, its origins are in Rome, and but it's actually referred to as what we call heroic medicine, and its best application, really, in my mind, is when you have a very, very, very perilous situation. Say someone's had a heart attack, You know, Western pharmaceuticals have their place. But when it comes to the tonic herbs, I think when we get a balanced society, they will embrace the tonic herbs. I don't know how much investment they would like to put into prevention. That's the whole thing. But the tonic herbs can help prevent us, you know, from getting sick. The tonic herbs are very important in the diet of all people on Earth now, because when combined with a living food diet, you must eat well. You know, you cannot take tonic herbs on their own and expect to have complete health. You must eat local, fresh, organic, and go to your farmer's place. See if their fields are, if they have more than 2 acres, I wouldn't buy. I go to somebody who's an acre or less than 2 acres. But that allows them to hand farm. When it's only an acre or so, they can hand pest control. Gets bigger than that, they're going to be have to use mechanical stuff. So you go there and you get that living food, or you go to your local, you know, farmer's market or health food store that oftentimes has, you know, supports your local farmers. You get this, prepare it correctly. It's the way the Chinese do it. Really, I agree with them again. I was in the raw food movement for a while. In fact, I wrote a book called Raw Qi. It's on Amazon. You can get it. It's a very interesting book about how qi is gotten into the blood, actually, for energy. Now I learned that we take the food and you know how the Chinese do it? They chop it in pretty big chunks, and they have a wok really hot with a little peanut oil and water in there. And they throw the vegetable, like just steam out, and then they throw it on the plate. So the inside is still pretty much raw, but the outside, all of the potential microbial problems and all that are gone, killed out. And the outer cellulose, which is the skin of the protective skin of the vegetable, is now softened, so that we can masticate and permeate and reach in and get the nutrients. So now you do those things, and you take tonic herbal elixirs. So what we did, actually, I'll give myself credit. It was my innovation to come up with the bulk powdered extract in the jar that you add into a drink and you make it. Because it dawned on me at one point when working with Ron Teagarden that the tonic herbs taste great, most of them. Like tribulus taste awful, but a lot of them taste good. And so, you know, you make an elixir with tonic herbs that go along with that living food diet. And what the tonic herbs do is they're supplying, you know, deeper nutrients that are more complex. So they're called polysaccharides, polyphenols, ganodermic acids, and these kind of things that are deeper, and they're embedded in that herb because the herb is a perennial plant, so the nutrients get embedded. So when we unlock them through the cooking, they're called extremophilic. They survive the cooking process and actually activates their bioavailability for us. So we take in this whole other class of nutrients that are not found in those carrots and those onions and potatoes. They're perennial plants, so that the sugars are much more complex and nutrient bearing, and they're slow burning, and they're holding lattices of other nutrients. So then we take that along with our living food diet, and the tonic herbs help take the nutrients deeper into replenish our kidneys, replenish our adrenals, regulate our immune response, to regulate stress response, to help modulate and regulate metabolism. And the tonic herbs have a way of helping us have a very peaceful spirit, as you know about reishi mushroom, the great reishi. So when we take the tonic herbs along with a living diet, and we maybe take a little shilajit with that, so we get our humic acids in a base in there every day, and we drink a little bit of pure salt and some water at night before we go to bed, and they take a little clay in there, and get out and get in some sun during the day. Look into the sun in the later afternoon, blink light, look in the sun for about 20 seconds, and when the sun is near the horizon, or in the morning. Walk in the sun, get sun on your back for 10 minutes. We can attain what the ancient masters called health beyond danger. And they were the so-called immortals of ancient Chinese lore. And they say there are still immortals in the mountains, and those immortals are Taoist Tonic Herbalists in our lineage. They live in the mountains still. My teacher's teacher insisted on it. Even with the toxins of our world, and here's why the tonic herbs are unveiling themselves to us at this time, because the toxins of the world have come to a place where we are imperiling our lives. The genome, every cell in our body is actually an antenna to a vast mind that science calls the genome, which is a silly word for it. You could call it God. And that master gardener, I call it the master gardener, you know, sends us messages through every cell. Those cells involved in our evolution as a species. Why do you have the fertility cycles? Why does a young boy and girl suddenly at 12 years old go boom and just go into puberty? That's because it's a genetic design. And then when we move into menopause and andropause later in our lives, that's a genetic design that it kicks in. All of these are messages that are given. And those messages are unveiled based on our vitality. So a woman or a man who is super vital might enter into menopause and andropause a little bit later. And then even then after those phases, maintain the youthfulness and vigor of their younger years. That's the kidneys. So when we take the tonic herbs, we're tonifying the energies of the organs to balance them. That's our job. Then this viewer's job is eat right, live right, get some sunlight, get some minerals, and drink good water. Get up in the morning and drink a glass of pure water with nothing in it, no lemon, no nothing, first thing in the morning. Hydrate your body. Drink some salt water before bed. Balance the forces of yin and yang. And we can overcome the onslaught of the toxins and the stress that we face right now. Because that master gardener, the God, Genome, does not intend for life to end. Too much energy has been put into this. When life is threatened, the message has come of our sustainment, And this is the tonic herbs and showing up now, after 5,000 years of being hidden in the mountains of China.
Thank you, Rehmannia.
All right, thank you, Constance.
I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.